Hi, this is Margaret from the blog Don't Call It Bollywood, and today I want to talk about scheduling, which seems like a really boring topic, but it's something that has a huge effect on what movies come out and how well they do and so on and so forth. There's certain days of the year when Indian films tend to come out, and depending on which day they are released, they can do better or worse. I'm not just talking about holiday weekend versus not holiday weekend, it's which particular holiday you select. Starting with the beginning of the year, you have Republic Day in January. Republic Day is a national holiday in India. All the schools and all the offices will be closed, which is great, so a whole bunch of different people can go see movies. However, the problem is it's only a holiday in India. So Republic Day is a good day to release a film that will do well in India, but may not do as well in other places in the world. For instance, I believe Agnipath, the new one with Hrithik, came out on Republic Day. It's a remake of a familiar film that works best if you already know the original, which would be true of the Indian audience. And it's kind of a darker, grittier film, which refers to specific Indian historical events like the emergency, which is how the film opens. So it really is made for the Indian audience. It did extremely well, but it did extremely well, as expected, within the Indian audience and the Indian diaspora. It's not so much a crossover movie. In February, the big holiday is Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is a little bit of an odd holiday in Indian film. In other places in the world, it's the date night holiday. So you try to come up with something romantic and you try to release something that people can go together on their Valentine's Day date. In India, for various reasons, Valentine's Day has become political. And so sometimes the Valentine's movies can be a little political in their slant. My Name is Khan is a good example of this. It was a romance, yes, but it was also extremely political, and it released on Valentine's Day. March, April, May, these are kind of slow periods. These are also the months when a lot of Southern big movies come out because the Southern industry has a whole different release schedule. But they are also the months when the Indian Cricket League is playing, which is bad for film because everybody's watching cricket. And all of the movie stars are involved with cricket as well. Many of them own teams, many of them are being spotted at games and so on. They don't have much time to promote a movie that might be releasing during that period. And it's also just kind of a bad time in terms of weather. There's Holi in the middle of that. But Holi is actually a really bad holiday to release a movie on because it's all about going outside and enjoying yourself and so on. There's something that you're already doing on your day off on that day. You're not looking for something to do and going, oh, I might as well see a movie. So Holi's a bad holiday to release a movie. And spring in general, the weather's not great. People don't really want to go outside and do stuff as much. People are watching cricket on their TVs. It's just a bad time to release a movie. The movies that do well during that period, and there are some, are the kind of sleeper hits. The ones that need a while for the audience to find them and can benefit from no really big movie coming out during that period. Ye Jawani Hai Diwani is a classic spring movie. It was a movie that did well because people went to see it because there's nothing else to see. And then they realized it was really good and they kept coming back to see it. Bahubali 2, the more recent one, that did very well in the Hindi audience, partly because it was a spring release. Mostly because it's just a very good movie, but also because there was nothing else playing. All of the theaters had their screens open. Everybody had their calendar open. There was nothing else to do but go see Bahubali because nothing else was coming out. The spring ends somewhere around May, around when the cricket time ends. And that's when slowly bigger movies start coming out. There's no real huge holiday in the early spring. It's more just sort of a ramping up. The first big holiday these past few years has been Eid. Of course, Eid moves around the calendar, so it's hard to find it with a moving target, but it is a very good holiday to release your movie because it's an international holiday. All over the world, people will have their days off for Eid. More than that, it's an international family holiday, and families need to go to movies because otherwise they'll talk to each other and get irritated and get into fights. So anytime you have a holiday that involves families coming together, that's a good holiday to release a movie. So Eid is a very good holiday. And for the past several years, it's been unofficially considered Salman Khan's holiday. Salman is the Khan who most aggressively identifies himself with the Muslim community. Shahrukh has been identified with the Muslim community by others, but Salman is the one who's sort of done it himself. There's this Salman Bhai feeling about him internationally. And so he benefits from acknowledging that connection with his Eid releases. Plus, it's just a really good, big holiday, and as one of the 3 biggest stars, he deserves to have set aside for him one of the biggest holidays. Moving on, there's various smaller holidays once you get into the fall, and you'll notice more and more films start coming out. Gandhi Jayanti is a good example of that kind of a holiday. It's a national holiday in India, but it's not one of the big national holidays. Like, it's not even as big as Republic Day. Everybody has the day off work. Everybody has the day off school. They might as well go see a movie, but it's not, you don't have to do a huge deal movie to pay correct tribute to this holiday. You're just sort of releasing something that can benefit from the 3-day weekend. There's also, of course, Independence Day. That is a big deal holiday, August 15th. But it's not an international holiday, but it almost is. In my town, for instance, there is an Indian Independence Day parade that happens, and Indian Independence Day festivities over and around. It's sort of the designated day internationally when you might want to acknowledge your Indian heritage. So it's a good day to release the kind of movie that makes people feel patriotic, that makes people think about what it means to be Indian. Akshay tends to do very well on Independence Day because he does that perfect, exact movie. It's patriotic, but not too patriotic. Gandhi Jayanti I already mentioned. Moving forward through the spring, the next really huge holiday is Diwali. Diwali is often sort of the culmination of all the other releases going Eid or Independence Day, depending on where Eid falls that year, through to Diwali. There's been this slow ramp up of bigger and bigger and bigger films. And then about 2 weeks before Diwali, nothing comes out because everyone is preparing for the Diwali release, which will be the really big one. Diwali has been unofficially Shahrukh Khan's holiday since Diwali de Lenia Le Jange came out. He doesn't always have a Diwali release, but if possible, he tries to. And he sort of has right of first refusal. It's casually mentioned sometimes, Eid, Diwali, and Christmas, which I'll get to. When the 3 Khans take one of those, if it's not Salman on Eid or Shahrukh on Diwali, they'll say, I called him up and asked him if he was taking it this year. Like, there's just an assumption that the days only open if the designated Khan isn't taking it. So, Shahrukh usually takes Diwali. And it's a good Shahrukh holiday. It is the familiest of family holidays. And it's also a bit of an international holiday because even if you're in the diaspora and you don't really celebrate everything else, you're still going to celebrate Diwali. And you're still going to celebrate Diwali with relatives coming in from out of town and all of that stuff. So you're looking for the kind of movie that you can go to and see with your relatives and get out of the house. That everybody will enjoy, nobody will be offended by. Chennai Express was pretty much a perfect Diwali movie. It had that Shahrukh Khan familiarity that everybody loved. It had humor for the kids. It had a nice message for the grown-ups. It had romance for everybody in the middle. It was ideal. And that's sort of, Shahrukh does best on those holidays. Salman with Eid, he can get a little bit aggressive, not quite so good for the happy, family-friendly feel of Diwali. And then Amir with Christmas, he can get a little more intellectual. But Shahrukh Diwali, it's a perfect match. After Diwali, there's a few more movies that come out, but depending on where Diwali falls, the next big release is going to be Christmas, and that can affect anything else that might be coming out. For instance, when Diwali was right around Thanksgiving last year, that only gave 4 weeks between Diwali and Christmas. So that would mean the big Diwali film would run for 2 weeks solid all by itself. And then anything that came out after those 2 weeks would run into the risk of losing all of its screens in a week and a half at Christmas. So there really wasn't anything between the two. This year we have something weird, partly just because Diwali fell so incredibly early. Instead of 4 weeks between the two holidays, we had more like 8 weeks between the two holidays. So there really was time for several other movies to come out. Early on, that was a good thing. We got movies like Ittifaq, Tumhari Sulu, which would not have been able to do as well, except they were in this surprisingly long dead period. But we're now reaching the end of that dead period, and it's kind of gone on too long. People are sick of these smaller films. They're ready for something big again. 6 weeks is fine. 8 weeks is stretching it a bit, and there's really nothing that we can do about that. That's just how the moon calendar worked, and that's where Diwali fell this year. Thank goodness, Christmas ended up being early. Kind of. Christmas is on a Monday, which means obviously the Christmas release is coming out the preceding Friday. If it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, then the Christmas release would just come out on Christmas. But since it's coming out right at the end of a weekend, it just makes sense to release it the Friday before. So that would be the earliest possible Christmas release, the 22nd of December. Christmas typically is Amir's holiday. It has been since at least Three Idiots, if not before. Amir makes perfect Christmas movies. Christmas is, again, an international holiday, especially in America and Europe and the UK, the countries where Amir's films do their best. In India, it's also a holiday, as in schools are closed and so on and so forth. Especially since many schools are Christian, that means they're closed for a week or so. But it's not really a big holiday, so you don't have family coming in, you don't have a series of events that are going to last the whole week. You've got all this time off, and you've really got nothing much to do besides going to see a movie. So you go to see Amir's new movie, and it doesn't have to be a family-friendly movie. It can be thought-provoking, it can be interesting, it can be all of those things, because you're not going with your massive family, because your family didn't all fly in for Christmas, because why would you bother? It's just Christmas. It's the kind of movie that you go to because you've got time off work, and it doesn't have to please everybody, or at least it doesn't have to please everybody simultaneously. The family with the kid can go to see it, and separately grandma and grandpa in their own town can go to see it. It doesn't have to be something that kid, grandma, grandpa, and parents all enjoy while sitting next to each other. So that's why Amir's movies that are a bit more thought-provoking, a bit more challenging in their social message, and so on and so forth, tend to do very well at Christmas. This year, Salman is taking Christmas, after checking with Amir that it was okay. And his movie looks to be kind of an interesting Christmas release. There's going to be a bit of a message to it, yes, but it's mostly going to be action-y and romancy and over the top. It's going to be the kind of movie that normally I would expect to see at Eid or Diwali, more of a family movie. However, I do think it will still do very well at Christmas because Yash Raj, in particular, has a certain filmic style, that studio, that tends to do well overseas. They do bright colors, they do very clean and well-made song sequences, they do all of these things that the overseas audience likes. So having this movie come out on a week when everybody in the world is going to have the day off, especially people in Europe and America, might be really good for its overseas figures. And then after Christmas, you're back to Republic Day, which is kind of a healthy thing, just to cover that transition between the two. So Christmas is December 25th. Republic Day is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I want to say January 20th, somewhere around there. The point is, there's a good 3.5 weeks between the two. So your Christmas release can run for a very long time. But Republic Day pops up right when people are beginning to get tired of Christmas. But it's not a big holiday. You're not going from big release to big release and exhausting the audience. You're going from big release to modest release about 4 weeks later. And then another modest release in February. And then spring, nothing. Slowly building up May and June. Big release Eid, biggish release Independence Day, modest releases every single weekend through the fall leading up to Diwali, massive release on Diwali, not much, massive release on Christmas. And that's how the year works. And there wasn't really any point to me doing this video right now. I just thought it was interesting to think about, especially since we have this particularly odd, long gap between Diwali and Christmas this year. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me, you can have thoughts on what I just said. Feel free to hop on over to my blog and leave me a comment. There's a link right below.